All right, welcome everyone. Can everyone hear me? Yes, okay. My name is Heather Osterheis, and my friend Jenny McMillan is here with us tonight from Texas. I live in Ohio, and we are super excited and actually really humbled at the number of people that were interested in hearing this topic. And Jenny and I are just both really passionate about two things, for sure: the Lord and homeschooling, and of course, Young Living. So three things. Before we get started, we just kind of want to set the stage and share with you that there is no one right way to do Young Living. There's no one right way to homeschool your children. And although we are talking primarily about homeschooling tonight and how to do a Young Living business, we want you to know that you could fill in the word homeschooling and the tips and the advice that we're giving you with any other thing, whether it's a full-time job or a ministry or any other thing. So although this is homeschool specific, there will be a lot of information that will apply across the board. I love Jenny, what we were talking about. Jenny's like, we're super passionate about this topic, but she's like, I've messed up a lot.
A ton.
I know many of us have, and it's really easy to feel like a failure, whether it's your Young Living business or whether it's something else that you're doing. And so we just want you to know we are not experts. We're not claiming to be experts, and we're just here to share with you what things that we've learned that have helped us along the way, things that we have done that we have messed up on, and just things that are working for us. And you can take that buffet of information, use what's helpful to you, and discard what's not. So we're not experts. We would just are willing to share, since there were so many people in that Destination Diamond group who were asking questions and commenting and posting. We just felt like, you know what, we just need to devote some time to explain everything. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you for doing it.
So Jenny, I'll let you, we have our notes over here on the side. So Jenny, why don't you start and share with us your story with Young Living? How did you get started in Young Living, and how is that going for you?
So our family has been using Young Living for about 9 years. I came into Young Living looking for some healthy solutions for respiratory support for my then 2-year-old daughter. And very quickly, within 2 weeks, had very dramatic results and was hooked and have been hooked ever since, and totally passionate about all things natural health. I had no intentions at the time to grow a business. I had just started homeschooling. I'd been homeschooling for about a year. And a little background on me, before I began staying home with our kids, I was mainly a private school and a little bit of public school teacher, mainly kindergarten. I spent 1 year in teaching junior high and ran back to kindergarten as fast as I possibly could, because you're gifted in some areas, and mine was not with middle school. And so eventually the Lord made it very clear that I was to homeschool. And so I had been homeschooling for about a year when Young Living came into our life. And I think it's interesting because I feel like for me, homeschooling was the first thing that I have ever done that was technically outside the box, not typically traditional thinking. And so I had been homeschooling for a year, loving it, kind of doing school at home, which is so different from what I do now, but it was just what I was comfortable with. I had come from the classroom, and I tried to recreate the classroom at home, which didn't work for us, but that's okay. And then Young Living, this whole idea of doing things differently with our health was outside the box too. So when I realized homeschooling was outside the box and we really were enjoying it, it has caused me to think of other things I could do outside the box. And Young Living, especially 9 years ago, when oils were not as common, that was really kind of out there. And so we quickly began seeing results with Young Living, and I did not actually start pursuing a business until 4 years in. I am a yellow green, and the green got the best of me. And I will tell you, that was a mistake. for me to not grow it ahead of, to just start from the beginning. But I felt like I needed to know everything. And if I could go back and do it over again, I would not have waited. But everything is in the Lord's timing, and that's okay. So I have been growing this business intentionally for 5 years and homeschooling the entire time. My children are 18, 12, 8, and 3. And so I started homeschooling when my oldest was going into first grade. And the thing that I remember thinking all along was, I have so much time with her. So, the homeschooling and being flexible was great, but I kept thinking, I have all these years, like, it's okay. And all of a sudden now I'm realizing she is a senior. Like, what happened? And when you have little kids, I remember hearing this all the time from older moms and stuff. They're like, oh, the time goes by so fast. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Yes, it does. It does. And so I am so passionate about homeschooling because I have seen what it's done for our family. I've seen that it has not been a perfect road at all. But what I've seen is that the Lord fills in the gaps. And I will tell you in just a minute when we go into some of our struggles, my homeschooling journey is not something that I would want to I'm not one to stand up and say, this is so great, I've done it perfectly, because I think I've failed more than I've succeeded. But still the Lord, it's like the saying, but God, he fills all in. He knows my heart. And so he has filled in the gaps. So it has been a challenge, and but yet very beautiful, the way that Young Living and homeschooling have fit together. So we're hoping tonight we can give you some encouragement to say, yeah, some of these things that we're trying to do, we need to tweak. We need to maybe shift. And some things really work really well, and maybe they'll help you too. So that's a little bit about our story. Heather, how about you?
All right. Thank you, Jenny. And I just, Jenny and I actually met. We've met through Young Living. We are under my second diamond is her first diamond, if that makes any sense to Young Living. And we actually met because one of my crossline friends, Skyla Mann, was on Silver Retreat with you and became good friends with you and your husband, Jenny. And so then through Skyla, I have met Jenny and have just loved getting to know her and her husband and her family. I think that's one of my favorite parts about Young Living is that there are so many like-minded people. You find those deep connections and those deep relationships cross-line and through the company. And so this has been one of those beautiful relationships. So I live in Iowa. Jenny lives in Texas, and my name is Heather Osterheis. I have been a Young Living member for 8 years. Used the product for several years and had absolutely no interest in the business whatsoever. The Lord called me out of several ministries in about 2008, 2009, and called me into homeschooling very clearly. And so I knew that was my calling. I went from being a woman who didn't know that I had a choice about being a career woman or being a mom that would stay home, let alone homeschool. I never knew I had a choice, and I just figured I needed to work. And so when we had our first child and the Lord, changed my heart about that, and I became a stay-at-home mom, and then to later have him call me into homeschooling, was really a journey that he had to walk me through. So when it came time for me to start my Young Living business, that was another thing that the Lord had to walk me through, because he had very clearly called me out of several ministries that I was involved with in order to be a better wife and mom and homeschooler. And so when I started my Young Living business, I had to pray about it for a while. My husband asked me to start this business. We had a loss of income from his job, and instead of firing people when the economy turned, his company cut everyone's pay in order to keep them. And so we started selling things and racking up, debt, and talked about selling our house. And that's when he came to me and said, you talk to everyone about essential oils. There's got to be a way for you to get paid for that. And I said, oh, no. I don't want anything to do with that. The Lord has called me here. I know I am walking in his plan, and I have friends that sell things. I don't go to parties. I don't have parties. I don't need another thing. I'm busy enough. Thank you very much. And he just pulled that ultimate trump card, said, I want you to pray about it. And it's not that my husband's never asked me to pray about something before, but this was more serious. He really intently wanted me to pray about it. So I did. And I'm not saying I made an ultimatum to the Lord, but I just seriously was seeking his face. Do you want me to do this? Because if you do, I want to follow your calling, but I need you to make it perfectly clear. Would you send people to me who flat out ask me, do you teach classes? And then I'll know that this is what you want me to do. And it was not 24, maybe 48 hours before I got a Facebook message from a friend who said, you know so much about essential oils. If I got some ladies together at my house, would you come teach us? Is it like Pampered Chef? Could I have a party? And I'm like, do I teach classes? Well, I guess I do now. And I had to quickly sit down with my husband and my upline and say, okay, what does this look like? What does this mean? How do I teach a class? And in her wisdom, she gave us some really great advice. And she advised John and I to sit down together and make a plan in terms of what would my time commitment be a week? Because, I thought I was already at full capacity as a homeschooling mom. And so we didn't want, with our family, and I know Jenny's heart is the same way, our family is the most important thing. It's one of the biggest reasons why we homeschool. And so I didn't want my family's time and the investment in my family to suffer by adding something else to my plate. And so we decided at that time that 2 nights a week would not cramp our family, that I could be away from the home 2 nights a week, whether that was ministry or a homeschool meeting or, teaching classes. And so I had to be very intentional about my time. And in the beginning, that is where most of my time was spent, was at night teaching I would teach 2 classes a week, 1 to 2 classes a week. And the off hours after homeschooling, I would be, messaging friends and inviting them to the classes that I was teaching. And that was the bulk of my workload, my work hours in the beginning. So that's a little bit of my, how I got started homeschooling. I do have 4 children. I have a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 14-year-old. So we are teaching 1st grade all the way to 8th grade. And we are going to go into a little bit of our homeschool philosophies. So I'll just keep going with my story a little bit, Jenny, and say the method, the philosophy of homeschooling that we have chosen is the Charlotte Mason method. That was what works for our family. And the Lord just kind of, put me right into a group of women that are homeschooling that way. And the more I learn about that philosophy of education, the more I see it applying to all of life, and the more beauty and peace it has brought to our home. So
Heather,
yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. There are a couple people saying they're having a hard time hearing you. Can you maybe scoot a little bit closer to your computer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I could talk louder.
I guess, can everybody just, Heather, start talking and everyone give a thumbs up if you can hear her a little bit better.
So I think I'm sitting close enough to the computer right now, and I can talk louder if I need to talk louder. Is this helpful if I have more volume?
Can y'all give a thumbs up if can y'all hear her better? Sort of.
It sounds like I'm far away. Huh.
Do you happen to have any earbuds?
Not here. Let me check this bed.
While she's checking, I'll go ahead and tell you about what my philosophy of homeschooling has been. It's changed. And for those of you who know, if you've been homeschooling for any amount of time, you come into it with a mindset and beliefs. And then as you have experience and maybe as you add more children to your family and as you're exposed to other things in the homeschooling world, you quickly realize what you thought was the way to go. All of a sudden, maybe you think, oh, there might be a different way to go. And some of you might be like me, who have been like, I'm going to go this way and that way and this way and that way. And I've done all different kinds of ways of homeschooling. And in some regards, I feel like, gosh, I wish I would have just stuck with one thing. But on the other hand, I say, I'm really thankful for the freedom to be able to choose what's best for my kids. And so when you start off homeschooling one, and then you end up having 2, 3, 4, 7, it's difficult. We're never going to have the right answer for the entire 12 years of school. It's just not going to, it's not going to happen. So where I have landed and where our kids are most comfortable, and it's our sweet spot, is basically a mix. I do a majority of learning with living books. So lots of like Charlotte Mason method, if you're familiar with that. We learn from literature. That's I would say the bulk of where my kids learn from, is getting real good books in their hands and learning through literature and learning through life. I am not a typical unschooler, someone who just does no curriculum, but I am very into learning with life experiences. I love that. I feel like there's so much value with that. And that's not how I started off. I started off very traditional. We did traditional curriculum. I had come from a traditional school, so that's all I knew. We've done everything in between. And I just feel like it has taken me a while to get into the groove. And I think it's because every 3 to 5 years I've had a child. And that always throws a loop. Everything gets kind of turned upside down. And now we have a new learner in the house. And that one doesn't maybe want to do it this way. And so my philosophy really, the underlying current of everything I do, is I want my kids to love learning. But even above that, if I do nothing else in my whole life, I want them to love the Lord. I don't care if they know algebra. I mean, I do care. But at the end of the day, if they don't love the Lord, it doesn't matter. I want them to love the Lord, and then we'll get to the academics. And so if I can instill a love for learning and make them independent early on, that is my goal, is independent learners. So I try to find curriculum and books and things like that that will foster that. And we've had a lot of success. And so we'll talk at the end about different, like, if you'll have questions about curriculum and all of that, but just a couple that we have used, in addition to just living books and great literatures, we really like Simply Charlotte Mason. And it's a website that follows the Charlotte Mason methodology, and she has really great book choices. We also do a lot of learning out of these journals called From Thinking Tree, and we'll post this in the event. It's basically it's all literature based, and so my kids go to the library and they are able to pick out books of their interest, and they are the ones that are investigating, and they are taking action on their own learning, and I love that. And so when I have not done that with the kids, when I've done other stuff, they fight back. They don't like it. And so I'm like, well, we have freedom. Why are we doing stuff we don't like? We need to at least learn the way that they are most inspired. And so my philosophy really is to instill a love for the Lord and to give them freedom in their learning, because we have lifelong learners, and I want them to grow up loving the process, not hating it. So that's a little bit about my philosophy. And I do want to tell you, one mentor that has meant so much to me throughout all my homeschooling years is Sally Clarkson. A lot of you may have heard of her. If you haven't, please look her up. She's a godsend. She is a veteran homeschool mom of 4 children. All her kids are grown. She just became a grandma, I think it was yesterday, for the first time. She's written a ton of books, Ministry of Motherhood, Mission of Motherhood, Educating the Wholehearted Child. All of her books are excellent. And in the days when I get tired and I say, I cannot do this anymore, I go to her blog posts, I go to her videos, and she reminds me why I'm doing this. And because it's very easy and those of you who have homeschooled for more than 2 days are going to know this. There are days when you think, what am I doing? Like, I cannot do this. And you need to be reminded on your calling. You need to be reminded what our job is. And this job is hard. It is a job, but it's not one that we see the rewards right away. And I'm seeing that. But the thing about it is now that I have a senior and I'm looking back and I'm saying, I cannot believe the blessing that this has been to our family. And she's not even graduated yet, but I'm already seeing it. So anyways, Sally Clarkson, if I could recommend anything for homeschooling, it would be that lady. So Heather, are you back now with earbuds?
Okay, so can anyone hear me now? Is this any better? I have earbuds in that don't have a speaker. I don't know if these have a speaker. Is this no hearing?
How about, do you have your phone that you could log in on? Would that work?
Okay, is this any better if I just take those earbuds out? Can anyone hear me now? Let me check my microphone.
A few can. I can because I have you turned really turned up really high, but some say they can't. Still the same is what they're saying. Not the earbuds. Check your microphone. Maybe an internal thing. Turn your volume up.
I'm just really befuddled. I usually don't have any problem on my Zooms.
Okay. Some people are saying they hear you okay, so that's kind of funny. I don't know what would be causing that. You know what, Heather?
We'll just keep going and hope that the recording is fine and people can catch up later. So turn me up, and then I'll try to do this right before I encourage Jenny to speak, and you can all turn your speakers back down again, I guess. I was saying that I really love the Charlotte Mason approach to homeschooling, and it's brought a lot of life and beauty into our home. One of the resources that I love is a blog post, and it's also a free podcast you can listen to. It's called A Delectable Education, and I will put that into our group notes in the event page. But A Delectable Education is a group of women that have really researched the Charlotte Mason philosophy, and they do all these podcasts that teach you how to teach every single subject in that philosophy. And they Charlotte Mason was an 1800s educator who taught a lot about just how to interact with people and teach people. So when you start those podcasts, you start at number 1 and you go in order. So if that's of interest to you, you can do that. But the reason I bring that up is because it ties into some of the things that we want to share with you about our struggles and challenges of working from home. So, Jenny and I were chatting about, and we just kept chuckling as each of us was sharing back and forth, which it wasn't the first time because we've talked about this before, but we have some of the same challenges, and we've had some of the same conversations with our husbands, who incidentally are both named John and both are architects. Her husband's a landscape architect and mine is a commercial architect. So, we have so many crazy similarities. When I first started homeschooling, when you first start homeschooling and you're homeschooling littles, your homeschool environment looks a lot different than it does when you're homeschooling bigger kids and middle years kids. And in the beginning, we had a lot more freedom to read more books, to go on more field trips, to just say, you know what, it's a gorgeous day. We're just going to chuck everything and we're going to go to the lake and enjoy creation and look at nature. And I had that approach in the early years, and it worked really well. It was very beautiful, but it also, my husband kept telling me that I needed to have a schedule. Especially when I started my Young Living business and my kids were getting older. We were doing more book work. As they get older, there's more book work required of you, and I was having trouble getting it all in.
Uh-oh.
And then
she
getting
froze.
it all in my business day too. So he kept saying, you need to have a schedule. And I kept fighting him because to me, a schedule was restricting. It wasn't fun. It didn't allow me the spontaneity that I loved about homeschooling. If my kids woke up and they were playing together, great. I wanted to let them do that and then go do my work over here. And then if they got up and they needed attention from me, then I wanted to, do reading first and do math later in the day. And so I felt like a schedule was going to stop me from having that spontaneity and the freedom that I so loved. I'm a blue-red split in personality, if you know the personality colors. And so I don't want to do things that aren't fun. And so for several years, we kept fighting about this. And finally, one year I gave in and I said, all right, I'm going to try it your way. Because, one year my excuse was, I don't have the brain power to make the schedule. Can you help me make the schedule? So he spent all this time making a spreadsheet, and then I tweaked it, and then I threw it away. I didn't want to do it. And then the next year I did a little bit of it and still threw it away. And so it's been a journey. But what I've learned is that the turning point for me was when my husband said to me, you're fighting this schedule because you don't want to be tied down to a plan. But you are spending that mental energy that you don't want to spend now because it's too hard to make the schedule. You're spending that time every single day deciding and juggling in your head moment to moment. And that's when it hit me that he was right, that I was expending a lot of energy. And with that, a lot of guilt. Because if I wasn't doing this, I should be doing that. And if I'm doing that, I should be doing this. And I never had this peace that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, that I was doing the plan in any area of my life. If I was homeschooling, I wasn't measuring up in my business. If I was working the business, I wasn't measuring up in my homeschooling. And it was this constant battle and guilt. And so what that schedule gave me was freedom. I thought it would take freedom from me, and it gave me freedom because I now had peace to know that I had taken the time to plan out. I know where I'm going with my homeschool journey and what I want my kids to know when they leave my home. I've backed it up to say, what's the roadmap to get there? And the same with my business. If these are my goals for the month, the year, my career in Young Living and network marketing, then where do I back that up? What does that mean to me day to day? And then I have freedom in my moments to know that I am doing school from 9 to noon, and that is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's actually 8 to noon. But I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And right now, my schedule says math with my son. And so if I'm doing my business, shame on me, because I have business hours over here, and I don't need to beat myself up about what is not getting done in my business. That happens at 1 o'clock. And over here, it's my time to fully be present and not be worrying about what I should be doing somewhere else. And Jenny, what have you found? I know you've had a similar story with schedules.
I really, I mean, our stories are so similar, and the fact that I really loathed a schedule. I felt the same way, like that is so boring, and I have no blue in me, so that's kind of funny. I mean, I'm very yellow and do have some green. You think I would like a schedule, but it felt to me like, we're homeschooling, we shouldn't have to have a schedule, which now, and like I've said, the more children you add, the more ridiculous that thought gets. You have to have a schedule or it's bedlam. And so the struggles that I have had is, I think that probably is common to all of us, is if you are at home with your kids, there is no one watching over you. You're the grown-up, so the accountability sometimes that's missing can make it hard for us to follow through, because there's a lot of things that pop up in our day that would really beg for our time that aren't necessarily what we should be spending it on. And I've even seen, even as something as simple and as innocent as a dentist appointment or things like that just pop into your day during school hours and you let it slip in, that really can mess you up if you continue to let that happen. And I'm saying all this because it's kind of funny that I'm even one of the hosts of this, because I have struggled in this area for the last, 11 years. It has been something that my husband and I talk about on a regular basis. And the exact same thing. He said, if you would just have a schedule. And I don't know, it's just one of those things that it's a personal development thing, I think, that finally I realized, you know what, he's exactly right. And so a little bit about backstory of one of the biggest struggles I think that I've seen in my business as it related to homeschooling is when I was going for silver several years ago. And I was so excited because I had really just started jumping into the business, and I saw the vision of what Young Living could do for our family. And the reason why I grow a business at its root is for my family. And we've got lots of big dreams to be able to bless other people. That's our ultimate why. But at its root is because I want it to bless my family and what the freedom it can bring my family. So when I caught vision of what Young Living can do for us, it got very exciting. And then when I saw how close I was getting to silver, I have to tell you, I dropped homeschooling. There were 3-4 months that we didn't do school at all. And, in some cases, like if you're ill or you just had a baby, like those are good reasons to not homeschool. For me, dropping homeschooling to go after silver was not a good reason, because it wasn't fair to my children. And the reason why I think that happened, and I think this is the root of a lot of things for me when it comes to this business, as moms, we do not get affirmation at home from our kids that we're doing a good job for them. Not very often. They don't know to tell us, hey, Thank you for spending 30 minutes on math homework when you had a headache. And thank you for doing my dishes. And thank you. You don't necessarily hear that, especially when they're little. Now, hopefully, as we're training them and they get older, hopefully they're thanking us and showing, some respect and things like that. But when they're little, you're not hearing that. But when you are growing a business and you are teaching classes and you are sharing, you are going to have all kinds of wonderful affirmation from grown-ups. They're going to tell you, I love the class you taught. Thank you for sharing with me. What you just shared with me just saved my whatever. Like, there's dramatic things that are said to you, and they're wonderful. And I love that because it's so rewarding. But the tendency can be, I think, is to say, I want to focus on the area where I'm getting affirmed. And that's not healthy. It's okay. I think it's good to be affirmed in our business. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but to then shift our attention over and say, I'm going to come over here because I'm feeling validated. I'm feeling pumped up. I'm feeling like I'm needed over here. And not focus on really where your true priority is. That is what happened to me. And so I am a very strong yellow, and as you know, yellows love to help. And like I told Heather, I'm a recovering helpaholic. I will help. And it's good to help, but when you are not helping your family first, when you are not serving your family first, that is where the problem lies, at least in my opinion. And that's what has happened in the past for us. So for me, seeking and needing outside affirmation, I have to be real careful with that. I have to say, what has the Lord called me to? I know He has called me to homeschool my children. I ask Him all the time, is this what you want me to do? And the answer has been yes, this is your calling. At the end of the day, when I am standing before Him, it is not going to be, what rank were you in Young Living? It's not. Now, is the rank important because of what it will allow us to do for His kingdom? Yes. But at the end of the day, it says, what did you do with what I gave you? And part of what He gave me are my children. And so that is the first and foremost in my mind. Now, having said that, can you grow a business at the same time? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where the schedule comes in, and being able to follow and have boundaries. Boundaries, I cannot tell you, is like, if you can create boundaries early on, if you have set school hours, don't answer your phone during those hours. Don't even text. Don't even think, oh, real quick, they're doing math, I'm just going to text really quick, because then you get on this rabbit trail. And then what you end up doing is showing your leaders and your team that you can be reached at all hours. And it also shows your children you're not valuing them and what they're doing. And so I'm always trying to say, okay, what are my kids thinking about what I'm doing right now? I don't want them to grow up resenting what I do. I don't want them to resent this business. I want them to see this as a blessing that has just rocked our world, and that it has been able to be used alongside everything that we do. So for me, finding outside affirmations was the big problem. Not setting boundaries was a huge problem in the beginning. And then my time management. I was just really bad at it. And it is a skill that I have had to learn. And so I think the thing that changed my time management abilities, and it's still a process, but is Danny Johnson. If any of you are familiar with her, she's a personal development lifestyle coach. She has a training called Time Secrets, and we'll put a link to it. It changed how I spent my time. And it made me realize that if I would just put things in priority, the Lord first in the morning, every day, devotion, every day, no matter what, before I pick up my phone, before I do anything, spending time with Him first. And then actually going through my morning without getting on social media, which I have to tell you, today, I totally stank at. I totally broke my rules this morning. And I have those days where I'm like, not to do this. But on the days when I'm doing what I need to do, where I have the discipline, I try not to get online until my work hours, which are from 1 to 4 or 1 to 3, depending on the day. So I think time management, as much as that sounds like a boring thing, it's so important. So Danny Johnson, I would encourage you, if you're needing help with that, her training is not cheap. I think it's a couple $100, but it changed everything for me. It really, really did. And so that would be one thing I would say. Heather, how about you?
I just want to thank you, Jenny, for being so humble and vulnerable to share your heart and your struggle, and just to be open with us and say, hey, I noticed that this was a sin in my life. This was something that was not working well. That just, it blesses me too to hear that, because I identify with that struggle too, because it is true in motherhood. You know, I've actually told my husband, when you go to work, you have coworkers and bosses that tell you at least once a year, you know, how you rank up. And oftentimes as a mom and a homeschooler, we only hear how we don't measure up, especially in our own mind, in our own heart. We are fighting that battle of what we didn't get done and how we failed. And so the temptation is real to seek that outside attention, doing good things, doing kingdom work, doing ministry, doing our business. Um, and so it can be a challenge to remember, you know, what our priorities are. And again, we are not here to say that the way that we do it is the right way or the only way. We're just here to present what the Lord has called us to and the path he's called us to, and to share with you that there's a trade-off. Okay, so I have several very good friends that have made it to Diamond who homeschooled, and they took a completely different approach. And that was great for them. That was a choice that they made. And I'm not saying that their choice was wrong, but there's a trade-off that, you know, even they are honest about. And so if you are someone that says our financial resources need to change and they need to change now, you can make that happen. You can say, you know what, we're going to press pause on homeschooling for a year or two, or put the kids in a less rigorous program, and we are going to put 100% of our effort into growing our business at full steam for a couple of years, because we know once those couple of years are over, we will reach a rank that will free us financially, and then we will also have complete time freedom, and we can come back over here and invest in homeschooling or invest in family. So there isn't a wrong way to do it. Jenny and I just are similar in that we've been called to homeschool and keep that at the same time as growing our business. And I will tell you that that's also a struggle for me, to see my very successful friends who did put homeschooling on hold reach ranks that are higher than me when we, you know, but I also see their sacrifice, and I know that I wasn't willing to make that sacrifice, and I wasn't called to. And so I have to just constantly keep checking in and say, you know what, the Lord has called me here, and he's called them here, and I need to be satisfied with where he's calling me. Now, there are still things I can learn and grow in and do better in both areas. But I'm not on the path that they're on. So I just want to point that out, that there's no right way, and that you can have either way that you feel the Lord is calling you to do. So my favorite inspirational person, we have different inspirations, so this is good for you guys to get more input. One of the biggest light bulb moments for me has been going through Darren Hardy's Compound Effect. It's a book, or you can get the book on audio, and it's really not just for network marketing, it's for life. And he's extremely read, and so he spoke to that part of me that is task driven and wants to achieve more in both areas of my life. I'm also because of the blue in me, I'm a big picture person, and I get bogged down in details. And if I don't see big results fast, then I start to shut down, and it's not worth it to me anymore. Funny story about that. My husband is extremely detailed. And so when we were younger in our marriage, he was at work and I was home with the baby, and we had decided to paint the hallway. We had the paint, and I just decided I'm going to quick paint the hallway. I'm going to roll it, and when he gets home, he can finish the trim. No big deal. He'll be so excited, and the job will be done. So it took me 30 minutes to roll this hallway, not very long at all. And I came home and I said, aren't you so excited? All you have to do is do the trim and the job is done. And he was so furious, because what I didn't know, he's a detailed person. He's like, Heather, there are 4 doorways in this hallway, and they're all beveled edges. And it took him 4 hours to paint that hallway that took me 30 minutes to roll. But I got those big results fast, and those tiny little details I didn't care about. So as that applies to my life, it was a big aha moment learning from Darren Hardy about the compound effect, that it's those little tasks, those little habits that you establish day in and day out that really add up to big success. And so I think sometimes when I was just chatting with my friend Skyla about this morning, that when we see someone doing something successful, whether it's someone in the Olympics or whether it's someone reaching diamond really quickly, or, you know, even like her husband is a marathon runner. We were talking about doing a Facebook Live about this, that we look at that and we're like, oh, I could never be a marathon runner. I could never be diamond that fast. They're just lucky, right? They just, you know, everything fell into place for them. But what we don't see in the case of the marathon runner, I didn't see the fact that maybe Brian has been running in track since junior high. I didn't see all the times that he had a Charlie horse or a sprained ankle and was about to give up because of the pain, and he pushed through and he trained and he learned how to stretch and he learned how to pace his run, and he worked his way up to his first marathon. You know, there's all this background work that we don't always see when we see someone's success. And as a big picture person, it's hard for me to look at all those details and to see that there were choices and habits that were made every single day that made that success possible. And so for me to hear some math to that, because I don't do math, but somebody else can show me math, of how that compound effect takes place, it was enough to motivate me to make those hard choices, to have the schedule, and then to make the habits. Because I had always thought, you know, I want to do what I feel like doing. And, you know, if I'm tired, I want to have the ability to sleep longer to nourish my body. And if the kids are having a bad day, I want the ability to love on them and do school in a different way. And what I was really doing is I was cheating myself out of those daily choices, because the truth was I'm never going to feel like it. I kept saying, I don't feel like I'm not a morning person. And guess what? I get up at 5:20 now. Now, I'm not saying you should do this if you have nurslings, because I don't have nurslings anymore. And there's no way I could have done this with babies in the house. But I'm just saying that there came a point in my life when I had to make some hard choices, and I had to decide, do I want to be a healthy person? Do I want to be a good steward of my body and take care of my health? Yes. And so I know I need some physical exercise. What's that going to look like for me? For me, I had to get up early because that was the only other place to put it into my day. And as a night owl, I had to train myself to go to sleep earlier and earlier so that when 5:20 came, I would get up. And I had to train myself to never hit snooze, because if I hit snooze, I would go back to sleep. And if I did it once, I would do it again. So I had to decide, and I had to get disciplined. And that was a naughty word to me for a very long time. But what that discipline has taught me is freedom. Because now I know I'm working towards my goals. And it's okay with me if I didn't hit diamond in 18 months, or that I've been building my business for 4 years and I'm at platinum. I could say I'm only at platinum, but in what other world, universe, career could I have worked part-time from home while homeschooling my kids and taking care of my family and earn the kind of income that I earn part-time from my house most days? Can I get a whoop whoop? Mm-hmm. And what would it look like? What would it look like if I only grew 10% in my income a year? Because the truth is, I grow more than 10% in a year with my steady efforts, week in, day out, and my steady choices. What other job? And so what if it took me another 4 years to get to Royal Crown Diamond and to earn, what is it, $100,000? We're going to have to put the income disclosure statement up. Whatever that income is, a month? Would that be okay with me, that it took me another 4 years, a total of 8 years, to build that while I was at home, part-time working and being a homeschool mom? Yes, it would. And so that's what drives me. And I do get discouraged sometimes. And I do think, gosh, they hit it so fast. And at the same time, I have to check myself and say, thank you, Lord, for what you've called me to, because this is my path. These children are my people. You've called me to shepherd them. And I want to be faithful to you, and I want to be a steward over here with the calling and the ministry that you've given me in Young Living also. So I have not been a disciplined person in my past. It is a skill that I've had to learn. And what I will tell you is that every time you hit a roadblock, whether it's in homeschooling or whether it's in your network marketing career or any other path in your life, if you come up against a wall and you feel like this is hard, it's not working, I should just give up, other people have what it takes, I don't. If you're having those kind of thoughts in whatever area of your life, it's not because you're not successful or you're not the person that had it all together or you're not lucky. It simply means it's time to learn a new skill. And your job is to find out what's that new skill and to seek the Lord for about how to apply it to your life. Every time, I used to think when I started Young Living that there'd be this rank like executive, silver, gold, where I would have achieved and I would have learned all I needed to learn and I would have figured everything out. And I'm here to tell you that at every single rank, there was something new that I needed to learn. There was a new area of my life that needed to grow, that I needed to be pruned in order to achieve the next rank. My leadership skills weren't ready to handle that challenge yet. So I had to dig in and do the hard work and grow a little bit more before I could achieve that next rank. And so I say that to you about your homeschooling. I say that to you about your motherhood. I say that to you about your Young Living career. Dig in and ask yourself on the days where it gets hard, what's the skill I need to learn? And have the courage to ask the people in your life that you trust if they notice an area you can grow in. And if it's your husband and he's telling you you need a schedule, maybe you need a schedule. Don't do like I did and wait like 3 to 5 years before you trust him, because I had to have other people tell me first. And then it was like, well, I need a schedule. And he's like, I've been telling you that for years. But sometimes we can't hear it from the people we love the most. Am I right? So Darren Hardy was really great for me. And I've been going through one of his leadership trainings where he's talking about productivity. So I want to share this piece with you because it's really helped me as I've honed in my schedule. Jenny alluded to the fact of what it's like to have your school schedule and to think, hey, I just want to quick check this text while they're doing their independent work over here. And what Darren really challenged us to do in this, it's called insane productivity, where you can be massively productive. He said you have to schedule you have to schedule your internet time. This is the time of day that I check my email, and it can be once or twice a day. He recommends you plan a pocket of time, maybe once, depending on your schedule. And then you stick to it. You don't check your email outside of that time. You schedule your Facebook time and your Facebook messages, and you're not pinging all day long. And so and I've heard that before, but I'm a multitasker, and I thought, come on, Darren, I'm a mama. I've got 4 kids. I know how this works. I do all the things with the baby hooked up. And so what he really challenged me on this was with his statistics that I can't remember for you because I'm not a numbers person, but I remember one. And that statistic was the amount of time that we refresh our email or we refresh our Facebook messages to see, do we have a message? And he said, some of us remember having a crazy lady on our street in the bathrobe that would walk out to her mailbox every like 10 minutes and pull open that mailbox and say, do I have any mail? Do I have any mail? No. Do I have any mail? Nope. And he said, we are doing the equivalent of that virtually every 3 minutes. Every 3 minutes, the average person is going in for a hit, because actually when you get an email or a message or a like or a comment on your Facebook, you are getting a dopamine rush that's similar to the drug addictions, right? And so we like that rush. We like Jenny was saying, we like to feel validated. We have somebody here in our pocket telling us that we're valued and important and they need us for something and they appreciate us. And so he was saying, you have to plan that out if you want to be productive, because here's what got me. For every 1 minute we're on the grid, right? We think the kids are just doing math, or I'm in the checkout line. I'm going to quick check an email. I'm going to quick send a text. For every 1 minute that you are in the grid, the virtual grid, it takes your brain 25 more minutes after that for every minute to get back into productivity. So while I thought I was multitasking, I was really sucking 25 extra minutes from every minute. Not just from the emotional drain that things like political posts trigger in us that take us away emotionally from our family, but just the mental activity that we have to process what it took and put it away and then get back into what we're doing. So what we're doing is really, we're living a distracted life. Not just when we have our phone on or our computer on, we're distracted for 25 more minutes for every minute past that. So that really motivated me to chunk up my time. And like Jenny, there are days where I fail and I don't do what I plan to do. And there are times of the month where something happens and I have the privilege of making an accommodation for that and just saying, you know what, this is a time where I have to call an audible and I have to say, right now, I am pressing pause. It's my choice. I'm not doing it distractedly. I'm choosing to press pause on school because I do need to take this time over here in my business, and I'll make an accommodation to make up for that school time later. But we have that privilege. And so I just encourage you to make sure that you are in the deciding seat more often than you're in the reacting seat, that you have made choices that allow you to choose where you're going. You know, if you know where you want to be in your Young Living business and the activities it takes you, then plan it out so that you can have the freedom to be guilt-free and all in, all present with your children. And that's time freedom now. You know, I don't have to wait for Diamond or Royal Crown to have time freedom. I can have it now if I'm wise with the choices that I make in my schedule.
Heather, I think all of that is so good, and about how just the little things that we do add up, and it's the consistency. You know, I was just telling some leaders last night in terms of growing our businesses, it's the consistency that matters. You know, even if it's just a little bit every day. So a little while ago, I had said that my schedule on most days is 1 to 4 or 1 to 3, kind of depending on the day. There have been times, though, just like in all of our lives, where maybe you don't have that much time. There are some of you on here that work full-time jobs, and you're probably saying to yourself, well, I have a schedule, but I physically don't have time. Like, there's no time in my day. So for the times like that, when I don't have good chunks of time in the afternoon, something that has really helped me is to, it's something that Madison Vining, she's a Royal Crown Diamond. She said one time that she grew to a Royal Crown Diamond 5 minutes at a time. And that really kind of got me thinking. I thought, you know what, as mothers, that's a really good tip, because we can grow this business 5 minutes at a time. Now, you can do it in a really kind of chaotic, unorganized way where you feel like, oh, I have 5 minutes right now. What should I do really quick and do it? Like, that's not productive. But to know ahead of time, and what I do is to actually lay out my plan of my week. On Monday, I do a gigantic brain dump on Monday mornings, and I write down everything in my head, whether it's homeschooling or Young Living or dentist or whatever. I write it down, and then I go through and I will highlight, you know, the things that I want to do for each day. And then I put my tasks for the day on Post-it notes in my calendar. So I'll have, you know, 5 to 7 Post-it notes with, I know, okay, Monday, I only really have to do these 4 things or these 5 things. And I really love ripping that Post-it note off and throwing it away when it's done. And I feel like I accomplished something. But the thing that's really helpful is if I've got everything written out, when I realize, hey, I do have 5 minutes right now, maybe the kids went to go play outside, or maybe my son is sleeping a little longer in the afternoon, and I'm like, okay, I have 5 minutes. I look at my list and I say, what can I do right now in 5 minutes? And it's a challenge. And so I actually did this with our leaders on our team at Christmas during the month of December, which typically, you know, December can be one of those months where people think, oh man, I'm so busy, I don't have enough time, and they kind of let their businesses go. I know I have in the past. I said, what if we kept track, and we had a Facebook post every time they did an income producing activity for Young Living. Maybe they called a prospect, or they or they followed up with somebody, or anything that they did that was 5 minutes or less, they came in and they commented. It is amazing how much work got done in December because we did it 5 minutes at a time. The key for that working, though, is you need to have a list in front of you ahead of time, because otherwise you're going to feel scattered and you're not going to have that laser focus. In order to be productive as a homeschool mom and a wife, and, you know, a keeper of your home and a business builder, all of that, you have to know you've got to have a plan, and it can't all be up here. It's got to be written down, or just somewhere, even on your phone, something to where you can say, okay, I've got 5 minutes. What can I do right now? And so that has been something that has really, really helped me.
I love that, Jenny. That 5 minutes a day can really impact. And so a resource that I love that I'll share quickly. I've really enjoyed the Diamond Workbook by Bethany Shipley is her name. And it's just quarterly. And so you're going to get a new one every quarter, which now's the time to order the next quarter that starts in April. But what I love about this is it's a calendar for me. But it has all my income producing activities in it for the week, as well as lists of things that I need to do every week or every month. Categories of people I need to be putting into lists, like who do I want to see, what friends need oils, make a list, and how to focus on them, tasks to do with that. What leaders do I want to see rank up? Who do I need to invest in? Tasks for that. All the way to, who's not on ER that needs to be. But then, just daily habits, daily income producing activities. And it really helps me focus and give me ideas for income producing activities, even though, I've been doing this a while and I could probably figure it out myself. But hey, somebody else put it in a planner and wrote it down, and all I have to do is check the list off. So that works well for me. And I don't keep Post-it notes because I want to show my husband, well, he never looks, but I want to be able to see what I've done. But I do find satisfaction in crossing off that list and seeing that long list have everything crossed off. So that really is inspiring to me. So this is just another resource. We'll put it into the comments of our group for you. But some practical things. I saw some people asking about how do they manage their phone and their time better. And so one of the things that Darren Hardy had in his productivity class about our phones was a phone detox questionnaire. And so, he had you add up how many boxes you checked. And then he said, like you're a massive addict, you're a crackhead, and then all the way down to you don't have a problem. And then he challenged you to pick one thing and work on it for a week and kick it, like uncheck that box. So for me, some of the things that I had checked are, do you take your phone to the bathroom and work in the bathroom? He said, uncheck that box. Do you is your phone sitting on the table at dinner? Uncheck that box. Train yourself to not put your phone on the table at dinner. He said, don't even have your phone next to you in the car. Don't be tempted at a stoplight to check your phone. And just things like that. So whatever it is, pick one thing. Pick one area of your life where you're like, you know what, I know my phone's invading, or I'm tempted to check it here. So for me, it was really helpful to set parameters around when my phone rings and when it doesn't. I turned off all my notifications on my phone. My phone doesn't ding, buzz, or beep unless it's a text. And only during certain hours of the day can it buzz, bing, or text. And then there's a way on my iPhone for me to have a list of people that it will come through no matter what. So like my husband can reach me. But I can't be distracted by the shiny things or the buzzes or the beeps. So I don't get any Facebook notifications that pop up like text. I don't get any email notifications that pop up like text. And nothing dings, especially during school hours. So it's silent, it's turned off. That has really helped me. And I do fail. I do have times where I take it to the bathroom and then I realize the time hole that put me in emotionally and mentally. Or the way that it sucks me from the schoolwork. But you just find ways to make it work for you. And again, there's no right system. But Jenny, do you want to give us a quick overview of how you came up with your schedule? If that's a brief question, I mean, you don't have to go into a lot of detail about the classes and things, but can you share quickly how you came up with your schedule? And I can share mine as well.
Yeah, sure. So just through trial and error, and because the ages of my kids are so varied, so age 3 to age 18, it's for those of you who have little kids, it can be hard. And keeping them busy during school hours is honestly the biggest challenge of all, I think, is the littles. So basically, where we are at this, it's changed because my son now is more capable of joining the group. But what we like to do is to start our day around 9 o'clock. My kids are not early risers, and I don't enforce getting up early. I like to let them sleep in because honestly, I need that time. I need that time in the morning. It makes me a much happier person. Something I haven't mentioned is I am very, very introverted. And so to be around my kids all day long and then to do lots of young living things and then to be around people at night, I get very drained. And so for extroverts, I know you're probably thinking that sounds so crazy, but you can grow this business and you can grow to high ranks and be an extreme introvert like me. But because I know that about myself, I have to give myself some really, really good quality me time. And so that happens in the mornings. And so we start school at 9, and we like to do some table time together as with all the kids. We do like Bible reading and things like that. And I won't go into all the classes that we do because we don't really do classes per se, because we're very free flowing in terms of we're reading a lot of literature. We're doing a lot of just stuff that's based on real life. And so what we'll do together though typically is the Bible and the character development type stuff, because that benefits all of them, and at all ages we can talk about it together. A lot of times we'll even do history that way, because that crosses lots of age spans, and so that's good. And then really I have my older daughters are very independent. They go off into their rooms and they have their schedules. And the way we like to do it is they set a timer and they work for an hour in each subject of their literature that they're reading. And it works really well for our family to have it be very it's very free flowing. They know that, okay, for an hour, I'm going to read out of this literature book. And for the next hour, I'm going to read out of this science book that's a living book. And for the next hour, and so my girls are typically done by about 1 o'clock. My son, who is 8, is done by lunchtime. So I only school 4 days a week. I've always just schooled 4 days a week. We have Thursdays off. I love the freedom of knowing that I can take a day off in the middle of the week or whatever, and that's fine. And I really, a mentor told me years ago, she said, you're going to be tempted with all these different extracurricular things that homeschoolers have at their fingertips to join every club, every social activity, every park day. And as much as we want to provide those things for our kids, it's going to keep you running, is what she told me. And then the other thing that she, didn't mention, but is so true, is it's much harder to have a young living work schedule if you're not home. Definitely you can do stuff in the car. I mean, people here on my team see I do most of my videos from my car, because if I go to the grocery store, I'm like 5 minutes, I can do a quick video, and I try to capitalize on that time. But if you're not home very much, it's hard to stick to a really good schedule. So we've just chosen Thursdays as our day to have the most of the stuff that we do outside the house. And so we just don't do school on Thursdays, and it's great. We do
You're doing school, you're just not doing book work.
Right. Exactly. We're learning, it's life learning, and it's typical their extracurricular sports and things like that. So we school off and on all year. We're not real, like, we don't follow the 9-month calendar. It's really, really hot here in Texas in the summer, and we don't like going outside very much. So we do more school, I would say throughout the summer than we do like in the fall or the spring, because that's when the kids want to be outside and jumping on the trampoline. And I love the freedom of it. It's really, really good. So Heather, how about you? What's your schedule like?
And so I used to always do 4 days a week also. And so I loved the freedom that brought me. This is our first year of doing a 5-day book work week. I also had to get really real about my temptation to schedule the dentist appointments, because we had the freedom to do that in the morning. And I had to say, I had to just make a rule. All appointments happen in the afternoon, or they don't happen. Just because I needed to protect that homeschool time, because it was so easy for me to say, let's go to the park today, or let's go to this play date. Excuse me. So I had to have those parameters for myself. So my schedule, because we do Charlotte Mason, there are so many subjects that we do as a family. And then my older girls do have additional work that they do on their own to supplement that. But we start school at 8, and depending on the day, I do have a daughter that has tutoring 2 mornings a week, and my husband takes her. And so when she's gone, we don't start our day together. But when she's home, we do start our day together. So while she's gone, I may be doing, individual work with children. But I had to sit down and the website, A Delectable Education and Sabbath Mood Homeschool, has really great cards that you can print out to help you map out your day. So I had this different colored basic, but you could do this on postcards or post-it notes. And I just basically, mapped out, I had a subject for every kid, and then I the time of our day, and I kind of just had to do this great big puzzle on the floor before school started, saying, okay, we can do all these together. And then while she's doing this independent work, I'm going to work with this child doing math. And so what's this child going to do? And sometimes I partner older kids with little kids, and sometimes I partner the two big kids to do subjects together. But when we do our group work, we're doing our Bible together, our history together, some of our literature. We're doing our French together. We're doing, there's just so many subjects we do together. And then there's individual subjects that they can do on their own based on their age. So that works for us. We school 5 days a week. We roughly school from 8 a.m. to somewhere between 11 and 12, depending on how many snacks and what time we want to do lunch. And sometimes we drag on into 1 if we weren't quite done. But I usually say that many afternoons I'm in the office from around 1 to 4. But I also have the freedom to say, you know what, especially at the beginning of a month, there's not as much book work and things in my office to do. And so then I will just say that I'm going to do a play date in that afternoon, or I'm going to schedule an appointment that afternoon. And then I have classes in the evenings. And so a couple of nights a week I will have classes. So I try to kind of schedule that out. I will say that it looks differently though. Your homeschooling life and your Young Living business both look different in its infancy. Like when you have infants at home, or when you're an infant in your business and you're just starting Young Living, the time commitment is different, and where you spend that time is different. So when I was first starting my business, most of my work was in the evenings. And now that I'm higher up, I do still have evenings and classes, but I also have team development and webinars and things that I do in my afternoon office hours. Or maybe I'm meeting someone virtually, a leader, to work on skills or something. So, my business hours have slowly increased as I've grown up in the company. But I will say that what it takes to get to Royal Crown Diamond, what it takes to grow your business is the same at every rank. It's just a couple of core things. You need to be meeting new people, building relationships. You need to be having basics classes and enrolling people and getting them on ER. That's it. Rinse and repeat. And I think a lot of times as we grow in our business, sometimes we reach a rank and we're like, whether consciously or subconsciously, we go into management mode and we start trying to manage people instead of doing the things that got us to where we are, which is meeting people, having basics classes, enrolling people and getting them on ER, rinse and repeat. That's it. And so if you find yourself stuck, that may be something. We all, at every rank, we are always teaching basics classes. We are always prospecting and finding new people to add to our team. But again, in the very beginning, that was all I had to do. And now I have some additional work with that. And so my hours are longer. So, if you're brand new to building your business, don't feel like, oh my goodness, her office hours are 1 to 4. They're not every day. They're that at certain times of the month. And Jenny, you had some really great ideas for how you have helped alleviate some of the tasks on your to-do list.
Yes, I am a very firm believer in outsourcing. And by that, I mean finding help in areas that don't necessarily require me to be the one to do it. And this is a new thing for me, because I, for a long time, felt like I needed to be the one to do it all, because I felt like if I wasn't the one cleaning my house and, doing all these different tasks, that I was not setting a good example for my kids. But being stressed out, like, running around the house like a chicken with my head cut off is not a good example either. And so I've just decided that there are some things I'm willing to pay for. Now, I will say that in the beginning, we did not have the funds for me to do this. And so there is this period of time where you go through this, where you think, gosh, I wish I could have some extra help, maybe a housekeeper once a month, or maybe someone to watch your children, 1 day a week, and you may not have the funds yet to do it. And so you have to get creative, maybe trading play dates with friends, or, just in that time period when you're not quite there yet, just know that if you can start casting a vision for yourself of, okay, when I get to the rank of silver, I'm going to reward myself by whatever it is, and outsource what you can outsource that does not require you to actually do it. So the very first thing that I outsourced was I hired a personal assistant. She's virtual. She lives in Georgia. She is on my team, and she is fantastic. And I would have never hired her if it weren't for the encouragement, actually, of her sister, who is a personal assistant to our Crown Diamond. And she said, look, I'm going to tell you this. I had just hit gold. And she said, you need to get an assistant. And I said, I know. But there was part of me that felt like I'm not a high enough rank yet. I don't deserve an assistant. And she is a good friend of mine, and she pretty much said, no, you're hiring my sister. She's really good, and you need to hire her. I know that you are going to feel so much more relief. So I hired my assistant, and she works for me anywhere from 5 to 8 hours a week, and she does tasks that have taken so much pressure off of me. She does a lot of stuff in the virtual office. She helps send out welcome letters to my team. She helps with rank advancement graphics. She helps with stuff that I don't really maybe necessarily enjoy doing. I'm not good at graphics. She is. And so she's been able to just really relieve a lot of pressure. She researches things for me. She is just an amazing blessing and worth every single penny. She has freed up so much time for me to actually do the income producing activities I need to be doing to grow my business. So when I realized it's costing me money and time to not be outsourcing this one thing. So the personal assistant was huge for me, and having her virtual has actually worked out really well, although there have been many times I wish she was in my home too, because she's just fantastic. The other thing that I've outsourced is housekeeping. I forever was trying to be the one cleaning my house and teaching my kids to clean, which I think is critical, and they still clean, so they did not get out of that task because they all need to know how to clean. But I still need the extra help because, they're not going to do the job exactly like I like it. And so we've hired housekeepers. And so for a while it was once a month because that's all we could afford. And it was such a blessing and a relief to me. And now, then it was twice a month, and now it's every week. And as my check has grown, I've said, okay, where can I put time and money, or where can I put my money so I can get more time? And so that has really helped. And then the third thing that I just recently outsourced, which to me was very extravagant, and I had a hard time doing it, but I love it now, and I think it's great, is I have our groceries delivered to our house, which a lot of you may already do that. I use a company called Shipt, SHIPT, and basically they will shop at your local grocery store, and they bring you your groceries when you tell them you want it. And, to me, it sounds like, wow, why would you spend an extra money on that? But for me, I loathe the grocery store. I can't stand going. And when I think about how it takes me 2.5, 3 hours to go get a full week of groceries, come home, do the whole thing, probably have to take some kids with me. You guys know that's stressful. And so just this week, I was thinking, gosh, I hope this is a good use of our finances. And I'm just testing it out. And as I'm sitting here homeschooling and getting stuff done, a nice lady brings us our groceries. And I thought, yes, that's worth it. That is worth it for me. And so as your income grows, see where you can take some pressure off. We don't have to do it all. We don't. I think that's a lie that we've been told. I think it's something where we're trying to be all for everyone, and we can't. You have to say, I've got limits. I can't do it all, and it's okay. So those are just three main ways that I have kind of just recently taken some pressure off. And it makes me feel like, okay, good, because I want to be the one to homeschool my kids. Someone had asked if Heather and I are in a co-op. I've done co-ops and I've loved them. I've actually put my kids in some out classes where other homeschool teachers have taught them. And for that time in that season, it was great. I have no problems with that, but I want to be their main teacher. And at this point in our life, I'm not ready to outsource that. Next year, maybe. Every year is different, but at this point, that's still my calling. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we viewed it.
I love that. So my outsourcing is a little bit different. I'll answer the co-op question first. We have done years with co-ops, and this year we chose a new curriculum that was more encompassing. And so I felt like I could do more at home without all the driving around. And I really just needed to get into the schedule and just kind of get married to that schedule and that rhythm of work and home hours. And so I chose to basically cut almost everything else out. We still have piano. Our piano teacher comes to our home instead of me driving to her home. So I do barter with her for the travel fee. And that's worth it to me, to not sit in the car while I cycle through 4 children piano. So that is one way that I've kind of reclaimed some of my time. But I remember I was on a training call with Gary Cox, who's a personal trainer. He's not for everyone, but he was doing a private coaching call for our team. And he was working with me, and he said, you know, just this idea of the millionaire, billionaire people that he has mentor him sometimes, how they outsource everything. And so their philosophy is, if my time is worth, let's say, $500 a month, which you'd have to do the math and figure out what's your income worth as a Royal Crown Diamond, right? If let's say it's $500 a month, and if I don't get paid $500 a month to mow my yard, or to clean my house, or to iron my clothes, or wash my clothes, and I don't also enjoy it, it doesn't bring me joy and satisfaction, then that should be something that I probably outsource. And so Gary was working with me, and he said, the very first thing he said was, can you get someone else to homeschool your kids? And I said, no. And he's like, why not? And I said, because that is something that I place a high value on. That is a job that I enjoy, and I will not outsource that. It's the entire reason why I homeschool. And he said, okay. And I said, but there are other things that I would gladly exchange. And so then we kind of talked about that. And he said, if your finances don't allow you to have the weekly house cleaner yet, then he said, you need to give yourself a hit. Do what it takes to do the work to get a one-time house cleaning, so that you can walk in and feel that feeling that you want to have weekly or even monthly, and then just slowly work up to it, like Jenny said she did. So for right now, you know, we've had times in our life where we've had a bi-weekly house cleaner, and it's really wonderful. It is a wonderful, wonderful tool to have some of those tasks that you don't enjoy take off your list. But the trick is, you have to exchange that time for income producing activities, or you're not getting the full benefit. So that is the trade-off. But my outsourcing right now is a lot of my children. So I'm training my older girls are cooking several meals. Number one, my family handles breakfast all on their own already. I have all my kids can cook eggs and oatmeal. My older girls are making suppers at least 2 nights a week. I don't cook supper, so I can have an evening webinar, and they'll handle the dinner and the cleanup and everything. And then lunches are kind of leftovers and put together, so most people can handle that. So, and then they all have chores that they which takes my time and my husband's time to make sure they were done. So we outsource a lot of that. And we just sat down with our family and said, look, these are our goals. This is why mommy works. This is why we have the schedule we have. These are our priorities. And we get our family on board and say, when this happens, when we reach this rank, this is what we're going to do as a family. And so what that means is that you're going to help. You're going to be part of our family business. And these are the things that you're going to do to be a part of the family business. And so they buy into the classes and helping load the car and attending classes and contributing in those ways and contributing at home. And so there's ways that everybody can help out if you get your family on board, so that it doesn't become something like, oh, mom's gone again. No, it's go, mom. We know you need to do this class and it's going to be awesome. And how many people did you enroll? And so there are cheerleaders instead of, you know, people that are maybe dragging us down. So.
And you know what, Heather, along those same lines, what I've seen in particularly my older girls, my 12 and 18-year-old, is that watching me grow this business, it's been part of their homeschool education, and it's fostered a sense of entrepreneurship that I don't think they would have gotten having not seen this and been immersed in this on a daily basis. And so they've seen me as a leader grow and stretch and get really outside my comfort zone and try things that worked and try things that didn't work. And I see them doing that in their own, you know, interests. And I just feel like there's this, you know, like we always hear, Well, I went to Texas A&M, and there's this whole thing called the other education. It's not the academics so much, it's the extracurricular and the other stuff that matters almost just as much as the academics. I feel like the atmosphere that we have as business builders in Young Living, if we're homeschooling, we have the opportunity to show our kids there's a different way of living. There's a different way. You don't have to necessarily grow up to get a job, to work 9 to 5, to work 40 years, to then, the day in, day out, to then retire on nothing. Like, where's the hope in that? And so I feel like as hard as sometimes the days are to homeschool and to do our business and to feel like we're doing it with grace and ease, which is always my goal, I feel like even in those hard days, our kids are learning such powerful life lessons that are you can't put an amount of money on that, or it's just immeasurable what they're learning. So I feel like for me, as long as I can keep my family the priority, and they know that they're their priority, and they see that I do have this other part of my life that is important. And oh my goodness, what Young Living has done for our family has been tremendous in terms of the freedom that it has given us, not only in our health, but in our finances and what we're able to do for other people. And so I want my kids to see that. I don't want them to see me so stressed out and running around crazy. I want them to see, look, mom had days that were hard, but everyone has hard days, and this is how we worked it out. And some days are pretty and some days are messy, but in the end, it's all a blessing. And so I think just keeping our eyes on what you feel the Lord has called you to do, and don't lose sight of that. And just know that you can do both of these. You definitely can. And I think I would say it would be a shame, but it's totally what the Lord's telling you to do. So who am I to say? But for me, I think some people would say, well, let me postpone growing a business until my kids are grown. I would say, look for a way to make it work. Even if it's not like what Heather said, some people go from, distributor of Royal Crown Diamond in 2.5 hours. You're like, how did they do that? And it's so fast. And when we compare ourselves, that's where we get into trouble. And if we can just say, you know what, I'm going to take this at the pace that the Lord has this happen. And I can say personally, the times where I follow the priorities that He has given me are the times where I have new business builders pop up that I had no idea. They just come out of nowhere. Or I have classes that fill up with people, or I have new enrollments. And it's almost like when I'm trying and I'm out there and I'm pushing and I'm doing it in my own strength, and my kids are not getting the best of me, I'm spinning my wheels. It's not working. And when I put everything into priority and say, you know what, Lord, you are the one that brings me this business, not me. You're using me for this business, and I'm your vessel, and you're bringing me. You're going to have the people on my team that are supposed to be on my team in the right timing. And I am just here, and just use me effectively. When I do that, number one, it takes away all guilt. It takes away burnout. It says, you know what, this is not up to me. It is so not up to me. It's in His timing, and whatever He wants for me is okay, and so getting to that point and not almost actually putting blinders on and saying, I am so happy for this leader over here that just did amazing things, and I know great things are going to happen for me. I'm keeping my eyes focused on what He has put before me. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I think the entrepreneurial spirit is huge. I think it's a huge blessing that we don't talk about a lot. So
yeah. So as we kind of wrap up some of our final thoughts, I love what you said, that we are actually giving our children an education in what being an entrepreneur is all about. And I just think I know we had in our notes to talk about the hard times a little bit, because there are seasons of our life where things are just different. We could have the schedule, we could have the plan, we could have, we could be doing the thing, but life happens, right? Like, there's death, we have miscarriage, we have a new baby, we have adoption, we have parents that need our care, we have a job loss, we have hard things that kind of throw us for a loop. And the beauty of homeschooling and the beauty of network marketing is that we have the power and the privilege to say, I can press pause. I can just take my family around and say, you know what, that book work that we were going to do has now become life work. We're going to do life together. We're going to cry together. We're going to laugh together. We're going to enjoy this baby. We're going to talk about grief. We're going to care for the elderly. And that even in times of hardship, just like Jenny said, as important as it is to follow the Lord's plan, specific plan for your life and your business, and to trust him in that, the times that I have had, for example, miscarriage, or I've had a really big health issue and I had nothing to give. I had nothing in me. Some of those times are the times where my business grew the most, grew the fastest. And it was as if the Lord was saying, I don't need you. Like Jenny said, doing it in her own effort. I don't need you, Heather, to do it in your own effort. I got this. Even when you're on the couch sick for months, I got this. I can do this without you. And that's the beauty of network marketing and duplication, when we're putting into place duplication and we're faithful with the day-to-day tasks. Now, I'm not saying in hard times that we ever quit, and I'm not saying in hard times that we ever do nothing, but there are times where we just back off the gas pedal, come really far. And we have to recognize that when we do that, it's going to take a long time to get momentum back. Momentum is what builds and builds and helps us to grow. And it's okay to press pause, and it's okay to have times where we're going fast in our business. But just to recognize the tension between that we have a responsibility to kind of keep both worlds going as the Lord leads us to do that. Again, it looks different for everyone. But we also have the freedom to enjoy that in the process. So as we close up here, we just had a final parting word before we open it up to questions. And we know that there are homeschoolers on here building businesses that have things that we haven't said, and we want to hear from you too. But one thing that we were just so encouraged by is that the Lord fills in the gaps. He does. As Jenny mentioned, and as I felt in my heart too, some days in motherhood feel so long. As a homeschooling mom who, is with my kids almost 24/7, the days are so long, but the years fly by. And so I want to look back on my time and say I was faithful in my business. I was faithful in my homeschooling journey. But I also have to just trust I'm human. And I have to trust in the fact that if my child is supposed to be a veterinarian, and I hate animals, I never take them to the zoo, we never have any pets, my child's going to be a veterinarian because that's the path the Lord has ordained for him. And I am not big enough, important enough to thwart his plan for their life. Now, I am responsible to do what he calls me to do. But I also can rest in the grace and the mercy that he will fill in the gaps. And if they don't learn it in my home, I've created a lifelong learner who knows how to seek out information and has the can-do attitude to keep learning and keep growing for a lifetime, which will serve them for a lifetime. And that I don't have to put on the pressure to do it all myself. I do have to be faithful moment to moment, day to day, but I do have God's grace to fill in the gaps.
Definitely. The gaps, I think, were the things that I worried the most about as a beginning homeschool mom, is what if they don't learn this and what if they don't learn that? And then I finally came to realize they're not going to learn everything. So it's okay. And so I think the biggest thing for me is just realizing that we only have our kids for a very short amount of time. And we want to do the very best that we can with the time that we've been given. And we've also been given this business for a reason. And so we want to use our time effectively with that too. Both are gifts. Our kids are a gift and this business is a gift. And so we want to use both effectively as the Lord tells us and as how he leads us. Oh, Heather, you're
I'm
muted.
muted.
There
Sorry.
you go.
So I want to open it up to questions. And we know there's other veteran homeschoolers here that have been building a business and who may have completely different approaches and completely different ideas, and we welcome that. We know that we're not the authority and we don't have all the answers, and we want to learn from you too. So this is just our time to do that and to share. So yeah, we'll just open it up. And you can unmute yourself if you want to press your unmute button. If you want to type it in the comment box. You can do that. We did have a really good question on here. What about the times where you're trying your guts out and success doesn't feel like it's happening? So for me, when those times have been happening, usually I find that I'm up against that wall and it's time for me to learn a new skill. There's something in my personal development. Maybe, there's something about my character or my personal growth as a human being that I need to learn. Maybe it's a new business skill that I need to learn, because there are skills in this business. We can't just walk into network marketing and assume, like brain surgery, brain surgeons go through years and years of school. They don't just walk in and say, I'm so excited, I bought my scissors and I'm going to be your surgeon today. Welcome to my, surgery suite. They've gone through years of training and coaching. And so we have to do the same. There are things, and everybody comes to network marketing with a different set of skills already in place. So you may come to network marketing and have had years of experience in public speaking. You may have a network of people. You just may be a natural networker who never met their product. And so to other people, it looks like, whoa, you're just so lucky and successful when you've had all these years of experience in different areas that benefit your network marketing career. Where other people come to network marketing and they can only go so far on their own strength. And that rank is different for everybody. So wherever you're at, where you're like, I feel like I'm trying my guts out, as Tamara said, it may just be time to learn a new skill. So.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I 100% agree. And I think sometimes the hardest thing for me is figuring out what is the skill. Like, I wish the skill would just drop on my head so I would know what I need to learn. But it doesn't happen that way. It comes very authentically, and it comes, unfortunately, sometimes slowly. And it's like, eventually when you finally understand, oh, this is the thing that's been missing, then it clicks really fast. But I think it always comes back to, there's some skill that needs to be worked on, for sure.
So Jenny, Jill is asking in the comment box, has your husband always been on board with homeschooling, or did it take him a conversation and selling, because going from 2 incomes to 1 income scares the lights out of him?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that's so common. My husband always was. I had wanted to homeschool from the time I had my first child. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I just didn't know when. And when we did come home, or when I did come home, it was a pretty big cut, of course. But he was always on board, which is good. What I will tell you in terms of paycheck, though, if your husband can see your Young Living check growing even just a little bit every month, that can really kind of help sometimes with the pressure of, okay, I see a future in this, and he can maybe see some hope. And usually a lot of husbands that are against Young Living and against oils in general, once they start seeing that paycheck, they go, oh, wait, maybe I do want to pay attention to this. So, yeah.
Girls, I got a question. I'm Robin here in Wichita, Kansas. I don't know if you guys can see me. My lighting's kind of bad. Hey, we are getting ready to make a cross-country move here in a couple of months. Husband's taking a pay cut, and I'm working on building my business. Do you have any suggestions? I don't even know what rank I am now. I'm a star. I'm close to the next one, whatever that is. And my team is starting to grow. I don't have any massive booming builders yet. I'm getting a couple that are getting excited, but they just haven't exploded. What advice do you have for me who is in my shoes, and any suggestions? Because I'll be starting homeschooling in September. It'll be my first year with 3 kids, ages 7, 5, and 3.
Well, that's exciting. Congratulations on your move.
Thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy in our life right now.
And it's okay. Crazy's okay for a time. I'll tell you my thoughts, and you can just kind of pray about those. But I would encourage you to say, and this is just my experience, this isn't everyone's experience, but I feel like for a long time, I hear a lot of my team saying, there's just not any builders yet. There's just not any builders yet. And I will say it wasn't until I was at least silver that I had the first person come to me and say, I want to be a builder.
Mm-hmm.
I did classes. I was doing all the classes in my team. I was teaching my whole team. And I had people who said, I'm not doing this as a business, but will you come teach a class for me and I'll invite my friends? And I was okay with that because I was planting seeds. And when their checks got big enough, then their eyebrows raised and they said, hey, wait a minute, this check isn't going away. I know there's somebody on this call who I'm talking about, Maria. And she's like, okay, I think I want to talk about this. So don't get discouraged. Do the work that needs to be done, no matter where they are on your team. If they don't see it yet, build it for them. You know, I did classes, and when you invite people to a class that I'm teaching for you, I put all those people under you. You got the enrollment and you got the sponsor, even if you told me you didn't want to do this as a business. And I was doing all the work, I was teaching all the classes because I wanted you to see that paycheck and have your eyebrows raised one day when it got big enough. So that's my experience. But I know other people, especially the people who are building. Like I have people on my team who just get network marketing right away. And they're like, yes, this oil is amazing. Yes, I'm building. Sign me up. What do I do? And not everybody is that way. Some of us, most of us, fall in love with the product for a long time before we become business builders. And I'm not saying that's the way it always is or the way that it should be. And I'm not speaking that out, but just understand that that's a real dynamic. And so don't be discouraged. Just be willing to do the hard work that it takes to build your team and to show them. Anybody else have thoughts for her?
Lots of
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. Anytime there's crazy, you really need to be bathing whatever it is in prayer. That's always my first thing. And I just found the only thing I feel like I've been successful at lately is realizing how much I need the Lord. You know, Matthew 6:33. If I'm not seeking the Lord first, nothing. It's very obvious that nothing is going to be added unto me. It's like going to be added unto me, and I'm going to be carrying that burden. And my husband's been, he's a pastor and a minister. He does prison ministry too. But he's been telling me that it's not my job to carry all these things. I have to cast my cares upon the Lord because he cares for me. And he's really, so it's like it's a faith walk. And every new season where I start to feel like I can be independent, I can do this, I've got this. You know, I went from being 9 months, 1 week pregnant at the gym, killing it, you know, while pregnant, and and people like being worried about me, to I had a baby, I'm going to enjoy the baby, and then I had postpartum, and then this whole new season has just been like, I feel like I'm a first-time mom, and I have 7 children. You know what I mean? And I'm a strength to all these people who are depending on me, and I can't even. It's a shift, you know, and so I've had to relearn things that I've known, but I'm getting to know them at a deeper place, at a deeper level, at a larger faith, you know, and I think that God's always going to be doing this to all of his children. It's not like he's messing with us, but, you know, he's always stretching us and taking us to a new level of faith.
And Robin, don't be afraid to press pause on parts of your life while you're doing your move. That's totally okay.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know if you can hear me.
Can you hear me?
A little bit? Yeah. I was just going to say that there are seasons to this, and I'm personally just coming off of a season of life where I hit gold in November, but that was because my summer, I was able to crush it and work really hard over the summer when we weren't doing lessons, and then hit gold, and then holy life happened. And we had a business to close. My husband had a huge job change, like so much life that I was kind of like, I just called Heather. Heather's my upline and my dear friend. I'm like, you got to just help me maintain, because I need to just press pause. I can maintain things, but I'm not teaching classes. I'm just living through what I need to live through right now. So it's okay to say that. And what happened for me was things kept happening. They keep happening, you know, even though I think they're not, and even though I think I'm not doing anything, I'm still using my oils. I'm still talking to people about them all the time. But it's okay to go with those seasons and work hard for a while and then take a break if you need to. But, you know, just find out what that rhythm is going to be for you. And then own
Awesome.
it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions about what we shared, or maybe something that we didn't share that you're like, oh, somebody needs to hear this tonight and I want to share it? Please share. I so appreciated what Tamara said about praying and bathing things in prayer. And I just think that's so important. As I was planning my schedule for my work and my business, my husband and I were both praying about that. It took a lot of prayer to get me to say I would have a schedule, but just praying about our goals, praying about how I was going to carry that out. And then asking my husband to pray for me, not just every day, but specifically about things. Hey, I'm really struggling with my daughter in math, and I got nothing, so I need prayer. And that's really strengthened our marriage, to take that to a whole new level and say, will you pray for me? Will you pray for this webinar tonight? I don't know how many women coming on, and I don't know most of them, and I'm going to share my heart. And my kids prayed for this call too, and that was beautiful. So I thank you for bringing that in. That was important to say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if no one else has anything that they want to share or say, I'm just going to stop the recording. Thank you all. I will stick around for more talk and more questions and to read the comments, but just thank you all for being here tonight and for sharing part of your evening and for letting us share our hearts with you. And I'm always available if you want to message me sometime. It's, I love talking about the Lord. I love talking about homeschool, and I love talking about Young Living. So it'd be an honor to do that with you further. So thank you again. I hope this blessed you. I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll be around for a little bit longer after that.
Heather, I just want to say really quick, thank you for organizing this, because I think this is a real need in the Young Living community that I don't think is talked about enough. And so I just wanted to thank you for being the one that said, hey, what would it be like if we did one of these, classes where we talk about this? Because it's been something that I've been thinking about for a long time. So I just appreciate you taking the lead and running with it. And I think it was as much of a ministry, or it ministered to me just as much as I hope it did everybody else, to see first of all, we're not alone. We don't have it all together. We can make all kinds of mistakes, but here we go again, but God, but God, if our hearts are in the right place. So anyways, thank you, Heather. I love you to death, and you know that. And so this has been really fun.
And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The reason I'm willing to do stuff like this is because I'm speaking to myself. I'm speaking to the choir. I'm taking a re-up, and I'm saying, yes, I can do this. I'm giving myself the same advice I gave you tonight. So good night.
Really, really helpful.